Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Lieutenant Colonel Bronwyn Johnstone. We warmly welcome Mr. Gordon Ramsay, ACT Minister for Seniors and Veterans, and the current and departing members of the ACT Veterans Advisory Council that are joining us here this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, St Patrick's Primary School, Lochinvar. From Queensland, St John's Lutheran Primary School, Bundaberg. And from Victoria, Melbourne Grammar School, Grimwade House, Caulfield. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Moheddeen Abdull Ghias Howsan. Moheddeen Howsan was born on the 23rd of April 1919, the eldest son of Moheddeen and Rahim Howsan of the Brisbane suburb of Mount Gravatt. Howsan was a member of a prominent family in Mount Gravatt and the descendant of one of the first Islamic families to settle in the area. Known as Bob to friends, Moheddeen attended Veranda Boys School and Brisbane Boys Grammar School and was a keen sportsman who enjoyed cricket, football, tennis and rowing. After school, he worked as a shop assistant and a salesman, and in 1939 studied elementary electronics. After the outbreak of the Second World War, Howsan served for 9 months in the local militia force, the 43rd Battery of the 11th Artillery Brigade. In July 1940, he enlisted to serve in the Royal Australian Air Force. His younger brother, Hamid, also served in the Air Force, one of 4 members of the extended Howsan family to serve during the war. After completing his initial training, Howsan embarked overseas to continue his pilot training in the United Kingdom. In regular appraisals made during his training, his skills were consistently listed as very good and superior. He was promoted on several occasions, eventually attaining the rank of Flight Sergeant. In October 1949, after receiving his flying badge, he was posted to number 405 Squadron, a unit of the Canadian Air Force that was operating from the United Kingdom. During the Second World War, it was common for airmen from across the British Commonwealth to serve in units that required their service, and Howsan was one of the many Australian servicemen to be attached to the Air Force of other Allied countries. With 405 Squadron, Howsan flew Vickers Wellington aircraft on bombing raids over Nazi-occupied Europe from the base of Polkington in Yorkshire. In the early hours of the 1st of April 1942, Howsan took part in one such raid as the pilot of the Wellington LQL on a bombing raid on a Ford motor factory northeast of Paris. After reaching its target, Howsan's aircraft came under enemy anti-aircraft fire. At around 4 a.m, his aircraft was struck by flak and caught fire. Howsan continued to fly the damaged aircraft as his crew attempted to put out the flames, but the damage was too extensive. Canadian pilot Laurel Bougon was able to escape from the burning aircraft, and despite his parachute catching fire, made it to the ground. He was later taken as a prisoner of war. He was, however, the only survivor. Bougon saw the furiously burning aircraft falling to earth on a path to crash into a small town of Malais-les-Roux, east of Paris. In his final act, Howsan was able to steer his plane away from the town, and it crashed into a nearby field, narrowly avoiding the local houses, school and church. The remaining 5 air crewmen were all killed. Howsan was 22 years old. His body and those of his crew were recovered from the burning wreck by the townspeople, who still commemorate Howsan's heroic action that saved the town. His remains now lie in the small Les Gonards cemetery near Versailles, along with 2 Canadian and 2 British airmen who died with him. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. we now remember Flight Sergeant Moheddeen Abdull Ghias Howsan, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, students, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.